Alright guys, so driving the Aston Martin DB12. I've already driven this car before, so I have a pretty good idea of how it drives and how it feels. But just wanted to get a sort of like a refresh of the way that it feels compared to the Vantage, because that's what's going to be coming up next. So far, I have it on Sport Plus mode, if I'm not wrong. Let me just double check. So yeah, it's on Sport Plus. And I can tell you right away that the engine is very responsive, and the transmission also is quite responsive, pretty quick to shift. I don't have it in manual mode right now. I just have it in basically automatic. So just waiting on a red light. But so far, I mean, like I wouldn't say it's a full-blown sports car, but like Aston Martin calls it, it's a super tour. So you get the best of both worlds, where you have, you know, the comfort of a GT, and then when you actually switch it to a Sport Plus mode, you actually get much more sportiness, better responsiveness. But we'll get a little bit deeper into it as I start driving a little bit more. Right away, I can tell you that on Sport Plus mode, the automatic transmission, like I said, I don't have it in manual mode. It's very, very responsive. I like the way that it's programmed. It shifts, as you guys can hear, pretty quickly. And even when I'm braking, it does downshift quite responsively as well. So you guys can hear right now as I'm actually braking. I love that engine note. That's what I love about this AMG twin turbo V8. It shares the same powertrain as in the Aston Martin Vantage, but this one has just a little bit more horsepower. If I'm not wrong, I think it's 671 horsepower. The way that the steering is not very hard to steer. It's still quite assisted, but it is very responsive, especially when it comes to Sport Plus mode. Aside from that, the brakes, I'd say I'm not 100% certain. I have to double check on this one if it's got the carbon ceramic brakes. Let me just see. Yeah, it does have. It's a $14,500 option. Extremely expensive, but I mean, they bite. You have quite a bit of an initial bite on these brakes. Of course, like I said, these are carbon ceramics. I would probably opt for the steels, just because of the fact that the carbons are so expensive, and unless you actually take this to the track, I don't think it's necessary to go for the carbons. The suspension is still pretty compliant, to be honest. It's not uncomfortable at all. Something odd that I noticed is, like, it does take a little bit of time to get used to the automatic brake hold, because you have to like double pump the brakes, but you have to do it in a specific manner, and I still haven't gotten used to that. I was just in fourth gear. I'm still in manual mode, and even from fourth gear, you know, going at a slow speed of about 35 miles an hour, there was still quite a bit of torque to propel me forward by quite a bit. Actually, it's that's what I love about this engine, the AMG twin turbo V8. What they did also at Aston Martin is that they actually fitted it with larger turbos, and what it allows you to do is actually have a wider torque curve. So I'm going on some bumpy roads right now. I mean, I have it on Sport Plus mode, which basically has it on the hardest suspension setting, and I can't say it's uncomfortable. Like, you can definitely go long distance with this. I'm gonna go over some speed bumps right now to see how it feels going over a speed bump. It's actually not bad at all. It's super comfortable. Yeah, and I can say that the transmission is actually pretty good. I wouldn't say it's dual clutch good, or even like, let's say, PDK good. But wow, the suspension is super compliant in this. Yeah, I wish I knew. That's an annoying thing, I can tell you guys, about the. I probably have to go somewhere in the settings to take away the speed warning, because I'm in an area where the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, and I'm going at like 34, and it's beeping at me. As you guys can hear, I'm going through some really bumpy roads right now in GT mode. Super compliant. Yeah, it's definitely the speed warning that is beeping at me, and I just don't know how to take that off, because it just keeps on flashing at me at the gauge cluster. Yeah, so ultimately, I'm very curious to see how this compares with the Vantage. I do think that Aston Martin did well in terms of calling this a world's first super tourer, because it does have a true dual personality. So let's see how the Vantage fares up against this. All right, guys. So driving the new 2025 Aston Martin Vantage. This is the facelifted version, and it's also got the revised engine from AMG, that 4-liter twin-turbo V8 that is actually shared with the DB12, but it actually gives a little bit less output. This one particularly has 656 horsepower versus the DB12's 671. The first thing that I realized, or that I noticed right away compared to the DB12, the engine note. I get a little bit more engine note on this than I do in the DB12, naturally, because this is more of a sporty drive. The steering, the feel, it's actually a little bit harder. I'm in sport mode right now, which is like the softest setting, if you want to call it. And I can also tell you that the suspension's a little bit firmer. And this is on the softest setting right now. So steering is actually it's actually a little bit tighter, and it feels like it's more communicative or more responsive, if I can say. Let's switch this to race mode, which is the most aggressive drive mode. Right away, the exhaust note opens up even more. The valves open up. You can hear the exhaust more. The steering is actually a little bit firmer. Let's put this into manual mode. And I believe this shares the same transmission as the DB12 as well, which I believe is a 8-speed ZF transmission. But right away you can tell that this car is a little bit livelier, a little bit sportier, and you get to feel that straight away from the steering itself and the suspension as well. I'm not saying it's uncomfortable, it's just a little bit firmer. It's definitely compliant. I haven't been able to drive this in an aggressive manner, or in a sort of sporty manner, let's say in back roads. But at least from city driving, the feeling that I get right away is that it's a sportier environment than the DB12. Of course, this is the sports car versus the GT car that the DB12 is. Now, if you were to ask me right off the bat what I would prefer, I'd probably go for the Vantage. That's just me though, because you still do get some comfort in this car, and you get more sportiness than you do in the DB12. Like I said before, you have a shared engine, so you have basically more or less almost the same horsepower on this vehicle, and at the end of the day you get the benefit of the same interior layout as well. Yeah, super fast, very responsive. I like this quite a bit, to be honest. And it feels nimbler as well, naturally, because it's a smaller vehicle. Not only smaller, but it's also a lighter vehicle. I'll put up the weight of this car on the screen for you guys, and I'll compare that also to the DB12 in terms of its weight. Being the same transmission that you get in the DB12, it's fast. It's not dual clutch fast. It's not even PDK fast. But at the end of the day, I think it's good enough for city driving, and I would even assume for track driving as well. I would probably say it's definitely good enough for back road driving, if you want to take it to the canyons or something like that. So like I said, right now I'm in race mode, and the suspension got slightly firmer, but I wouldn't say, once again, it's not uncomfortable. I can definitely deal with this on a daily basis. This is in no way whatsoever a vehicle that you cannot drive as a daily driver. The DB12 would end up being much more of a daily driver, just because suspension is a little bit more compliant, a little bit more comfortable. It's a little bit larger. The interior living space over here, of course, you don't have any back seats in the Vantage, but the front, it doesn't feel that much smaller than the DB12. That was almost full throttle. I would say 4/5 throttle, and oh my God, you definitely feel the G-forces in this. I think the engine that this shares with the DB12 definitely feels much more powerful in the Vantage just because it's a smaller package. Oh my God. You definitely get a more exhilarating drive in the Vantage than you do in the DB12. Brake feel, it's actually quite good. This one doesn't have the carbon ceramics, so that's why I find that the brake feel in this is a little bit less of a bite. It's easier to get used to. And I'd probably go with that myself, to be honest. Let's stick this into neutral because I'm in the tunnel right now, and I want to give you guys a few revs. It's like gunshots. It's amazing. I love this. Don't you love that? And this is like stock. This is straight from the factory. It's incredible. I mean, you don't get this with the DB12. You definitely get much more emotion in the Vantage than you do with the DB12. That's without a doubt. I guess you guys can tell from my reactions which one I prefer after driving it and getting some of the feel of the drive. Definitely the Vantage. And that's probably because I'm closer to a sportier sort of intent when I drive, and also I prefer sportier cars. I'm not saying that the DB12 doesn't have a sporty side to it, but this one definitely has that extra notch of sportiness. Would I take this over a 911 Turbo? I haven't driven 911 Turbo, but I can tell you, at least from the emotion that you get out of the engine, probably this. I mean, 911 Turbo is a scalpel. It's extremely fast. It's a rocket ship. But at the end of the day, where are you going to use that speed? Unless you're actually going to be tracking that car as a daily car that you're going to be driving in the city, on back roads, I don't think you'll be able to extract all the performance of a 911 Turbo S, for example, unless you're a professional driver. Most regular people like myself, I wouldn't be able to extract that out of a 911 Turbo S, nor would I be able to extract it out of this Vantage. So why not get something that gives you more soul and smiles? I mean, that alone right there is enough to get me to get into something like this, as opposed to an 911 Turbo S. Compared to the DB12 though, like I said, I prefer the smaller feel and the package over the DB12. So, oh my God. Yeah, look guys, I'm sorry, but I mean, this is a more, it definitely has a sportier intent you get to see in the DB12. I personally prefer that. Now it depends what kind of consumer you are. If you're looking for something where you can drive more comfortably and then get a bit of a sportier side to it, don't get me wrong, like I said, I would say that the DB12 is more of a car with dual personalities than this. This is more on the sporty spectrum, and if you want to have more comfort, you're not going to have it as much as you do in the DB12. And like I said before, the suspension in this is not to the point where it's unbearable. You could definitely deal with this on a daily basis. At least I would, without a problem. So if you guys were to ask me, which one would I choose between the DB12 and the Vantage from a driving dynamics or a driving perspective or an experience, I'd go with the Vantage, to be honest with you guys.